an editorial defense analysis examining South Korea's military readiness and regional security.
Look at the geopolitical map of the Indo-Pacific. There is a specific logic behind the geographic distance between the Korean Peninsula and the southern coast of Australia. When observing the operational establishment of the Hanwha Armored Vehicle Center of Excellence in Geelong, we need to see more than just an assembly plant. This event represents a departure from traditional procurement patterns within the regional security architecture. It is not merely about the transfer of specific platforms like the AS21 Redback infantry fighting vehicle or the AS9 Huntsman self-propelled howitzer. Structurally, this facility suggests a deep realignment in the defense relationship between South Korea and Australia. The relationship is shifting. It is moving from a transactional model of vendor and client toward an integrated industrial partnership, one designed to address reciprocal strategic vulnerabilities. The facility in Victoria, therefore, serves as a physical manifestation of a strategy to create industrial depth outside the Korean Peninsula. At the same time, it solves Australia's chronic inability to sustain a sovereign manufacturing base for high-intensity warfare assets. Let us look at this from a systems perspective. Canberra's decision to select the AS21 Redback for the Land 400 Phase 3 program, a contract valued at approximately $7 billion Australian dollars, indicates a shift in risk appetite. Historically, Australian procurement has favored platforms with established supply chains in North America or Europe. They accepted long lead times. They accepted limited rights to modify designs. But this time is different. The selection of a Korean partner, one willing to transfer distinct manufacturing processes to Australian soil, highlights a new priority. Supply chain sovereignty is being placed above legacy interoperability with traditional NATO suppliers. This decision suggests that the Australian Department of Defence is placing a premium on the speed of delivery, and more importantly, the ability to modify systems in-country, a capability that becomes critical if maritime supply lines are contested in a future conflict scenario. The industrial logic underpinning the Geelong facility, known as HACE, aligns perfectly with the broader South Korean strategy. That strategy is securing a secondary industrial front. Remember that the concentration of South Korea's heavy defense industry in the southeastern region of the peninsula, including Changwon and Ulsan, presents a significant strategic risk. These areas are within range of adversary artillery and missiles. By establishing a fully functional production node in Australia, South Korean defense planners are effectively creating an offshore manufacturing reserve. In the event of a high-intensity conflict on the peninsula that degrades domestic industrial capacity, the Australian facility could, in theory, pivot from supplying the Australian Army to generating replacement hulls and components for the Republic of Korea Armed Forces. This creates a form of strategic depth that geography denies South Korea at home. It turns the Australian alliance into a logistical rearguard, as much as a diplomatic partnership. However, this integration introduces complex trade-offs regarding cost and export viability. Manufacturing heavy armor in Australia, a high-wage economy with a comparatively small skilled industrial workforce, inevitably raises the unit cost of production, significantly higher than domestic manufacturing in Korea. While the political imperative of job creation in Victoria is satisfied, it complicates the economic case for using Australia as an export hub for third markets. If the unit cost of an Australian-made Redback or Huntsman significantly exceeds that of its Korean counterpart, the ambition to integrate Australia into Hanwha's global supply chain may be limited. It might only be viable in specific markets where political alignment with the Five Eyes intelligence alliance outweighs pure economic efficiency. This economic friction suggests a reality. While the political will for a second front exists, the market mechanisms to sustain it without continuous government subsidy remain unproven. Furthermore, the technical architecture of these platforms highlights the challenges of hybrid military technology. The Redback is not a purely Korean system. It is a complex integration of a Korean chassis, Israeli turret technology, and American or Australian command and control systems. This integration creates a unique logistical footprint. While it enhances capability by combining best-in-class subsystems, it also fragments the sustainment model. A failure in the supply chain of the Israeli optical systems or the U.S. combat management software could render the locally manufactured hull ineffective. Therefore, the concept of sovereignty here is conditional. Australia achieves sovereignty over the metalwork and assembly, but it remains embedded in a global interdependence for the sensors and software that define the vehicle's lethality. This distinction is critical when analyzing the actual independence the Australian Defence Force gains from these programs. Looking forward, the potential expansion of this industrial model into the maritime domain, specifically the C-3000 requirement for general-purpose frigates, would represent an exponential increase in complexity. Transferring the production of a tracked vehicle involves complex welding and automotive supply chains. But transplanting the construction of advanced surface combatants involves a much wider ecosystem of radar integration, acoustic management, and weapon certification. If the success of the Geelong Armoured Vehicle Plant is used as justification for selecting a Korean frigate design, it would signal a profound long-term shift in Australia's naval alignment, moving away from reliance on British and European shipbuilders in favor of an Indo-Pacific partner capable of delivering mass and tonnage on tighter schedules. Ultimately, the deepening defense-industrial tie between Seoul and Canberra is an exercise in managing the tension between strategic autonomy and economic reality. It creates necessary redundancy in the supply chain for the democratic bloc in the region. But it comes at the price of higher distinct unit costs and increased integration complexity. The true value of this partnership will likely not be tested on the parade ground, but in the ability of this newly forged industrial ecosystem to adapt to the rapid consumption rates of modern high-intensity conflict, where the ability to repair and replace equipment is as decisive as the initial technical specifications. The shift from commercial vendor to strategic industrial partner is evident. However, the resilience of this structure under the pressure of actual crisis remains a projection rather than a proven fact.